Hello, I am going live today. I want to make sure that this is working. I figure there's really just one way to get going, and that's to begin. When I say we, I mean all the different parts of myself are fascinated with being live because there's a sense that when you're live, there's no like backing out of things. There's no way for me to like, I'm gonna say it like F with y'all, and it's just gonna be real. It's just gonna be real because I like real. I like being present with folks in a legit way. So I'm gonna move the computer over this way. This is definitely take one, right? So that way we can get better lighting going. And I'm gonna grab my phone, and then we'll begin. We'll begin discussing the things that I think are gonna happen as of right now. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Okay, so today is a Libra new moon, and what that means for those who are new to astrology is that the sun, the luminary, the thing that makes all of this possible, is right next to the moon. The moon is a vessel for that light. It's something that reflects the sun's light back to us, so we have a little bit of light at night. Right now, you can't see the moon because the moon is new. That means it's not reflecting any light back because they're in the same spot from our perspective. And that means that there's something that's not as bright as it can be. There's not as much visible to us right now. And that's a very literal thing. So how would this manifest in your chart? How does this manifest in the collective? Well, everyone is having a unique experience, so I need to be very careful about who and what I say, because it's just my opinion. I don't want to tell you what's going to happen in your life. I'm essentially just telling you stories about what I see. And what I do see is that right now, there's all of these planets in Libra. You've got the sun and Mars, Mercury and the moon, all in Libra. And the planet that rules Libra is Venus, and Venus is in Scorpio, right? Venus isn't happy in Scorpio. So let's just say that right now, the feeling of love and connection and harmony and, taking things a part of yourself, that lovey-dovey kind of juicy energy is in a place in the sky called Scorpio, which is very intense. Scorpio energy is Martian in nature. So it is something that wants to go and get shit done, right? It is aggressive. It's not afraid to be like a scorpion, right? And just sort of crawl around in the desert, doing its own thing. It's on a mission. If you fuck with it, you're going to get stung, kind of an energy. So you can see why the lovey-dovey planet that's in charge of Libra is sort of like not at home. Like the vibe of a scorpion is under rocks and hiding, because it's got to avoid predators and things that can come down and eat it. So this lovey-dovey thing that wants to hug everything is like, oh my gosh, I can't really do that right now. And it's intense because that lovey-dovey planet, according to the stories from the sky, according to the planet, according to my interpretation of those, is in charge of Libra energy. And since the sun, which is like vital energy, the moon, our emotions are the vessels essentially that we've got here, and our ability to take strong Martian forward moving action and how we communicate are all under the control of this. So the super cuddly, touchy-feely yumminess that Libra wants to achieve, also the fairness and the balance, it's not happening. So what did that manifest like today? Well, people just weren't, not everyone, but in general, like the predominant experience from my shift at the restaurant today was essentially someone wanting to get something without paying for it. And I was like, but you ordered it. Like, what's the deal here? Like, you ordered this. Why are you expecting to not have to pay for it? Because I wasn't told that it would cost something. I'm like, you're at a restaurant. Like, what do you mean? You don't get things for free at restaurants. That's not how this works. So that was kind of like the experience of today. So it sort of felt kind of appropriate to this feeling of like wanting harmony, wanting fairness, and it just not working because someone was just sort of going for what they wanted and they don't really care about the other person's feelings about it. So it's kind of a tough energy. I heard from friends at the restaurant today that things were kind of confusing. They were feeling the Mercury retrograde, like sluggish, not able to really move forward, and that makes sense. To make matters a bit worse, if you will, worse is a word I'm using, the planet that rules over Scorpio, which is where Venus is. Let's look at Mars, right? Mars rules over Scorpio in traditional astrology. So you look at Mars in Libra, and it hates to be in Libra. So the planet in charge of the sun and the moon and Mercury and Mars right now is Venus, and she's unhappy. And who's in charge of Scorpio territory? Mars. Mars hates to be in Libra because Mars wants to do what the fuck it wants. And Libra's like, I want to balance. And what you're doing is, should I do that? Are we in this together? Is this cool? Like, always wanting it to be in relationship and balanced. Libra energy is outgoing. It's very generous when done well. It wants to accommodate. It wants to make sure that certain boundaries and things are respected. Mars is like, I'm fucking going. I'm doing this shit. So that planet, not happy, in charge of the other territory where Venus is. So again, unhappiness, discontentment, things not really jiving smoothly. Imbalances are to be expected. Because Mercury is also retrograde, that means that your messages and communications are just sort of like, you can still get things done during a Mercury retrograde period, of course. Like, this happens 3 times a year, so we have to assume that you can still function. It's not like the world shuts down completely, but moving things along is hard whenever the normal, better, like, some people don't ever seem to have an easy time getting messages across, but in general, like, think about everyone in the world who gets packages and who uses technology, and like, there's just an ungodly amount of data being shared between different people now. It's just something that's happening, and generally it works. Like, you're able to stream things on Netflix most of the time. You just are. There are times when it goes down, but not all the time. We just heard that there was the outages and things like that with the social media giants, so that's interesting. So we've kind of started looking around at these archetypal energies, and there's this general, like, I'm not in charge of what I want to do. I'm not really getting to shine the way that I want to shine right now because there's just this general kind of blah feeling that's happening. That's kind of like the moment of this new moon right now. That's what I'm seeing. And it's interesting because there's all of this discussion, there's all of this talk that I've been hearing about the structure of how the governmental society isn't really working. Pluto is squaring Mercury right now, which means that there is discussion about shutdowns of the government, like something needs to change. That was in the news, that could be a signification of this. It's my job is not to tell you that astrology is something. My job is to say, like, hey, the planets are going about, there are these energies happening right now, and when you look to the stars, you can kind of like begin to tell a story about what's happening. The problem is with astrology, it's very general, it's very abstract, so you could easily discredit it. So it's not for everyone who wants to know, like, what color is this? It's orange. If you had an object and you asked me what color it is, I would be like, can I look at it, please? Like, can I see it with my eyes? That's going to be the best way to answer that question. That's not what astrology is for. Astrology, to me, is a form of entertainment. It's a form of telling stories, thinking about what's happening in the world, thinking about how you might fit into the greater narrative. So let's look at this arrangement and sort of see where we might find some relief from all of this kind of blah energy, things not really swimming along easily, conflict, sort of behind the scenes kind of conflict, because the Martial Aries energy isn't really coming out at anyone. It's all sort of like hidden behind the scenes kind of a vibe. Yeah, it's not fun. We need to look at the fact that Jupiter right now, the planet of optimism and joy and expansion, is trining. So this is going to be the relief, right? This is going to be a little blessing, and I can kind of show you how it's manifested in my life, and maybe you can relate. Jupiter energy, so optimistic, expansive energy, is being sent out. So, like, what would that manifest like for me? Oh, I get to watch an episode of Ted Lasso, or I had a guy who paid for my sushi, my vegan avocado and rice rolls, right? Like, that was an experience that I got to have. So basically, in my everyday comings and goings, I did get to have this like nice dinner experience where the conversation was really, really all over the map, to be honest. Philosophy, astrology, work, structure. Like, I really think because Jupiter is kind of trining Mercury, that even though things are kind of not really moving forward exactly, there is this sense of you can kind of go there. You can kind of talk about all these big ideas, these futuristic ideas, because Aquarius is often about bringing down, I think, the new way of doing things, serving, the images of a person bringing water. So that's kind of interesting. So Pluto squares Mercury. So we need to change. There needs to be this transformation. And then there's leaks for social media. There's potential government shutdowns in the work. And then Jupiter is this expansive force that's talking to Mercury and saying, hey, let's go there. Let's explore these futuristic ideas. I don't think the conversations are going to be outlandishly revolutionary and inspiring, though, because again, Saturn is ruling over Aquarius. Jupiter is in Aquarius. So the really white witch vibes of Saturn this controlling force is in her home kingdom of Aquarius, which I think is like a winter wonderland, and just like she means business. Jupiter, this dude comes in and he wants to be optimistic, and he's like, there's not a whole lot I can do in this winter wonderland compared to what I could do if I was in Pisces or Sagittarius, for instance. But like, I'm gonna make the best of it. So maybe something small and still very meaningful, or saying a kind word to someone that really is meaningful given all of this sort of troubling energy. But being truthful is a really good idea. Just sort of saying what you mean. It's trying to use me first language, which is probably going to... I have to believe if there's a square between Pluto and Mercury, that means there's going to be some give and take between like the reality of what needs to give and what needs to budge, and what you'd like to, and what you're saying and what you're doing. Like, just kind of titrate it. Just kind of titrate your message. Make sure you're speaking from an I feel or I want place. And I think that can probably help us out. It's just a bit challenging. It's a bit challenging arrangement. So what can we expect moving forward? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move forward like a day or two. Right now I'm scrolling through, and the change that's going to happen the first that I think we're going to be able to feel quickly, which is great news. Venus, the ruler of all of the planets in Libra right now, she's going to move into Sagittarius, which I think is going to be nice. I don't think it's going to be this unbelievable shift, but I think it's going to be a noticeable shift. I think there's going to be this slightly more optimistic, a slightly more assertive, maybe a bit sporadic, but there's going to be, I think, pockets of pleasure, pockets of good news, little bits of good news, little things that you can do. For whatever reason, I'm thinking, you could share an idea that you have with a little more openness than what we had experienced before. Because Scorpio to me is like, I'm really kind of putting it all under the surface. So you could share something with a little bit more freedom, a little bit more openness. Like, over the next few days, risk being a little bit more open, sharing a few more ideas of yours. Tell the truth. Again, like, there's this tell the truth thing that just keeps coming up, which is generally a very positive thing, I think. Let's see, Jupiter at that point is going to be trining Mars. It's moving into that trine. So I think even though it's hard for us to kind of go and do what we want right now, there'll be a slight relaxation of that. Not much. I know we're kind of in this like lockdown town. So since we're sort of being closed in, find the ways that you can get comfortable. Like, your comfort level is going to need there needs to be some give and take. That's the way it is. And you're going to be forced to come to that conclusion. So, for instance, today there was a gentleman who kind of last minute was like, hey, do you still want to go and have dinner tonight? And I was like, dude, thank you for inviting me. I really hate to say no to something like this because I'm new to this city and I really want to meet people. But I feel like after this video, I'm probably gonna put on some sunscreen and go to a park and just chill. Just chill. Like in the shade. I don't know what else I'm gonna do outside of that, but I just need to have a moment. Like I need to be comfortable. I have been moving around so much. My I've been traveling and moving and bustling about really for years now. Like my sense of home and grounding is not happening. Like I don't feel that. Now this is me personally, and that's because Taurus for me is in the I guess ninth whole sign house. So it makes sense that I'm getting a lot of updates to my philosophies, my interpretations of God. I'm moving about. I can see how that pattern is playing out in my specific life. It'll be different from yours. So, for instance, one of my coworkers is a Taurus rising. Her sense of self is radically going through little spurts of growth because Uranus is sudden and very jarring in a way. Like there's going to be bits of information, revolutionary ideas that are just sort of zapped her way sporadically. That would be the prediction. You'll have to ask her whether or not that's really her experience because again, I'm telling stories based off the stars. You're the person who needs to like investigate whether or not it's true or I'm not here to take anyone's power away. These are just my stories. I just want to make that clear. But I know that there are a lot of people who like to watch and listen to people. And if I can be someone who encourages or challenges or inspires or anything like that, then I want to be able to do it. And this is a way for me to practice that. Perhaps I'm not talking in the most coherent or logical way. I find my skill sets really best in collaboration with others. I really think that that's where my skills are really most valuable. This feels a bit scattered all over the map, but I still feel like it's the right thing to do. So, okay. The moon is now moving still. We're going to try to get the moon all the way to the full moon stage. That's what I want to kind of do with these videos. Just go from moon sun conjunction to the opposition to whenever there's the most going on. There's the most awareness, conscious awareness happening. Okay. That could be interesting. October 14th. When is Mercury going direct? That's what we want to do next. Mercury's going to go direct on the 18th, it looks like. Okay. Right around we're getting closer to that full moon, which is going to be roughly on the 19th, I guess. Moon in Aries. Yeah, ish. I don't know the specific time, but between the 19th and the 20th, it looks like it makes its exact aspect somewhere in that range. Yeah, probably like super late on the 19th, it looks like when it's happening. So, what has changed? What has changed? The sun is, on its way to Scorpio season. It's still going to be in Libra season. Mercury is going to turn around, which is good. And Uranus and Neptune are going to be retrograde, but all the other planets are no longer retrograde. So that's good. That I think that means that there's going to be this feeling of inertia that begins, like in various areas of our lives. Again, it's hard for me to say how that's specifically going to weigh out until I look at someone's birth chart. But on the 19th-ish, by the time that Mercury decides to go forward. So we've been in this sort of sluggish, kind of hidden, I'm not able to get what I want across. Everything is sort of like repressed. I do think there's going to be a slight opening up that's going to happen over the next few days. I think there's going to be opportunities for little sporadic moments of just like optimism and openness between people. I think that's going to happen as we move forward still, as we get closer to the full moon in Aries. I believe it's going to be. That makes sense. The full moon in Aries, there will be probably a new video at that point for us to continue that next cycle. But there's going to be on that day now again, the specifics of how it's going to look in someone's chart I can't say. But this is what I'll say. The slightly more optimistic, lovey-dovey, integrative force is in a little bit better territory. She's in a little bit better territory. Doesn't by any means have a ton of room to roam around, but there's going to be a little more wiggle room, a slight more wiggle room, and her relationship with the aggressive parts of us and the part of us that actually manifests, that actually shares the light, that actually does, and how we communicate. There will be a learning experience. There will be a learning that comes from that, how we communicate. There will be a moment where that learning experience is going to somehow jolt its way into making a precise change, like a precise action, a precise move, probably related somehow to how you feel comfortable, how you consume, how you ground. There will be a shift around the 19th ish, I believe, that is happening in general. There will be some kind of punch that occurs. For me, it's interesting because I have a trip to Austin, so I will very literally be in another place. So that kind of makes sense. Again, Taurus for me is kind of like the 9th house. There will also be a square, T-square kind of an energy between the moon, Pluto, and it looks like the sun and Mars, I believe. So again, so hard to be specific, but let's say there's this individual that really wants to do something, that has the necessary feelings and energy to do it, probably without too much consideration, right? That is going to be a thing that wants to happen, and it's going to be slowed down a great deal by the reality of the situation, which is you're probably not going to have a ton of juice and momentum to get that thing done, right? And it's going to be something that you feel needs to change. And it affects more than just you. It affects the structure of how we exist together, like the lasting structure. So around that day, I think there's going to be an increased ability to communicate a little bit, but there will be this tension, this pressure. And if you choose to practice a technique of where to find that release, it would be in the sign of Cancer. So if you look at your chart and see what house Cancer's in, that it's an interesting idea, because I could see it. If you really want to do this and you don't feel like you can, but something really needs to get done, that energy, it might be a good time to reach out to someone or go to your happy place where you really feel safe and you really feel nurtured, because there is going to be this maybe this like hard stop kind of a situation, this hard stop, and it might be noticeable. It might be visible to many people. Again, it's so hard to be specific. I probably need to stop saying that, but I don't want to mislead anyone. It's just so damn general. But at least now you know that I have a feeling for the planets, and this is something that is pretty low lift for me. I need to get better at it. I'm open to any suggestions you have about things that were clear and not clear. If you do decide to listen to this, probably shouldn't say, there's so many things to refine and do better. And I suppose I am down for that adventure. It will be a practice to potentially even observe myself and take notes if no one is interested in providing me that feedback, because no one may watch this, but they may also. Who knows? But it's been about half an hour, which is, I think, a good stopping point. Thank you for your time if you did indeed watch this. And if you have questions about your specific chart, of course, reach out to me. But I hope that this sort of secretive, stuck feeling gets a little bit of a release, just a little bit, over the next few days. Take deep breaths and really tell the truth. Really go inside. Really root down into you and your experience. Try not to speak for other people. Try not to do that. I need to be careful not to do that as an astrologer, right? I'm just telling stories about the stars. Anything else I want to say? I guess my brand thing. Love, light, and the snake's bite to you.